Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer podcast. I'm your co-host, Thomas Vick, joined by our co-host, Seth Wilson. Seth, how's it going today?
Thomas, I'm doing wonderful. We had a chance to catch up off or before we started recording, which is always fun to brainstorm on cases. And it's just an exciting thing that we get to do as lawyers and helping folks solve some sometimes challenging problems and issues. And that's a lot of fun. So I always enjoy that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it as well, kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, figuring out what's the best way to solve a client's problem, and as we talked about earlier, there is often more than one way to solve a problem. The judgment call that an attorney has to make is which one is the best. You can kind of think through every single scenario and all of them work out kind of at the same result. It may be more difficult going down one path than the other path. And so it's great to have attorneys, mentors, people that you can talk to about your cases and kind of get some feedback on how to approach certain client situations.
Yeah, what a great point. I mean, as a prospective lifetime legacy lawyer going out to hang your own shingle, so to speak, or maybe going into a small firm, that is a really important piece of the puzzle, that you have that network of mentors built in or are working on developing that, and so that you can have some resource and help available. And in Indiana, there's some great resources available through the Indiana State Bar Association's law practice management website, and different folks who are further down the practice track, so to speak. And I think, in my experience, have been very willing to help young lawyers who are starting out in their practice. And like I said, it's a lot of fun, and you come back with different ideas than you had before and better ways to serve your clients. So that's a good thing. And
Absolutely.
shifting gears just a touch, you and I have talked a lot in the past on the podcast about how we utilize some of the software tools effectively, I hope, for our clients and our practice management. But I wanted to maybe take a little bit different approach and talk about, where does the value of sort of the old legal pad and pen, or maybe some kind of appointment book or something like that, come into your practice, and what have you seen as maybe helpful or beneficial in using more of an old school approach?
Well, this is timely because this very week, as of Monday, I started using this thing right here. This is my daily planner. It's actually you can do yearly planning, monthly planning, weekly planning, and daily planning with this business planner. And along with that, I bought just kind of a blank notebook to track notes that I make for appointments. And the reason why I did that is in part related to a discussion we had a few weeks ago about how when you're in a client appointment, it's really important to not have that barrier that is your laptop sitting in front of you. You really kind of miss that human connection whenever you're sitting in front of your laptop and it's separating you and your client. So I've tried to be a little bit more cognizant of that and not take as many notes on my computer and take notes on a piece of paper. And, back when I was a young attorney, 10, 11 years ago, I thought, I'm an attorney, I'm in the legal field, I have to use legal sized paper for everything. My deeds have to be on legal sized paper. And so I bought, 2 or 3 reams of legal sized paper. And a few months after I bought that, I realized I don't actually have to use legal sized paper, 11 inches by 14 inches. And so I've just had this scrap paper for the last 10 years, and that's what I've been using. And the ridiculous thing is that I've got notes spread all over the place. And, usually I'm good about moving my notes over to Clio or to, Lawmatics, whatever I might be using, OneDrive. But it's not a guarantee. I don't always do it. So I sometimes miss the mark on it. So I decided I'm going to solve that problem, and I'm going to have something bound by a publishing company that will allow me to just keep all my notes in the same place. So that's what this black appointment book is for, just a regular lined paper. And I'm able to write down the date and, the name of my client, and then make some notes about what was said in the appointment. So yeah, I really am trying. It seems kind of weird. I bought a hard copy journal, but the reason why I did that is to kind of cut down on my paper usage because I was using it anyway.
It's all about that right tool for the job. And I think what's really interesting in today's time is we have so much information coming at us digitally. So emails or text messages or Teams messages or whatever is coming on the instant messenger and social media channels and website inquiries and those kind of things. And it's always a challenge to keep up with that. And I think having a book gives you a little sense of peace that, okay, I know it's in here. I may have to scroll through multiple pages to find it, but it's here. And that single source of truth, so to speak, is helpful there. I think the other thing that's unique about utilizing a pen and paper type situation is you can see some progress being made as you fill up the pages, right? Digital, you just feel like you're constantly putting information in, but where does it go? How does it show up? Unless you have some graph or something that gives you that visual, it's hard to understand how much you've done. Certainly, you can see like when your inbox is overflowing from email, it's off the screen, but your brain then goes, I don't know how much is there because it's off the screen. It could be one email off the screen, but it could be 100 emails off the screen. And it creates that chaos for you, if you will. So I do like that sort of sense of I can see all edges of the paper and I know what's on here and where that is and where I can go find it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. This is really kind of my first week of using this planner, and my week started out with what are my weekly priorities. And so Monday morning, I came into the office and I just wrote down, every single matter that was a priority. And, I had 10 or 12 or more matters that needed my attention. And then once I had done that, then I realized, oh, there are some of these projects that I can delegate. So then I was able to kind of offload those to my staff, get them working on those projects from the beginning of the week. And then now on Thursday, week is almost over and I see the progress that we're making. And, if I could show you my journal, I could show you, okay, I've got that project done. It's got the check mark. I got the line through it. So I'm seeing the progress from the planning that I did on Monday. And I'm not solely using this daily planner for my to-do list. This is really just to kind of focus my mind on what I need to be working on. It's, Clio is still going to be the main place where my tasks are stored, but it's just a good reminder, and it's a place where, if I get an email that I look at and I'm not able to respond, I can write it down, and right beside me on my desk, I've got the planner. I can just write it down. I don't have to switch the screens to Clio and generate a task. I can just put it down and then I'm going to be reminded of it. And then if I need to later on, I can move it to Clio for some reason. Yeah, it's not the end all be all. Clio is kind of the main place for me to put my tasks, but it's just a way for me to stay on top of things that come up throughout the week and make sure that I'm making progress.
Yeah, I agree. There is so much value and efficiency. I use quotes around that for having everything in a digital form. And yet there's also that cognitive load, I think it increases because in Clio, for example, or any task management tool, if you have due dates and you miss the date, and now you have overdue tasks and due tasks and upcoming tasks, and it's hard to sort of prioritize within that system. Not to mention that other people in your team can assign you tasks or things that they want you to be working on. And so having sort of that notebook approach helps you identify, hey, these for me, these are the three MITs, right? And most important tasks for the day. and I need to get these done regardless of whether that's work wise or home wise or whatever it is. I'm going to have that written out. And at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, I'm looking at the notebook going, okay, did I get all this accomplished today? And I don't use it to replicate my calendar necessarily, because that's a lot of dual entry that I don't feel like I really need. But I use it for tracking maybe habits that I'm working on, whether that's getting rid of a bad habit or starting a new one, or progress toward a goal, right? So if I have a billable goal for the month, I can write down what I did that day and start seeing that progress. And yes, you can do that with a spreadsheet or other tools, but I just like having it kind of all in one place and pretty easy to refer back to in wherever I am. Now, the downside is if you forget or lose the notebook, you got a whole other host of problems, I suppose. But the other trick there is I will often take pictures of or scan a photo of that page to keep it with me digitally. Or I may even dictate the summary into the task list or something else at the end of the day. Lots of little tools there, but it all for me, and as you're mentioning, is just trying to get to that point of, okay, I got it all here, I've got a plan, and I'm working.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. So you don't necessarily replicate your tasks in your daily planner. Yours is more of kind of goal oriented.
Yeah,
What you're doing.
exactly. Yep.
Gotcha.
So what I'll do, for example, is I kind of have my big monthly goals that I want to get accomplished, and I'll kind of write those out on the front end of the week and keep those at the top. So I know I've got, these 5 to 10 things that I want to get done this month. And it's usually a couple a week, and then I'll have the daily, these are the 3 things I know I got to get done today. Now they may show up on my calendar and they may also be a task, but just kind of keeping it top of mind of, in the midst of everything else that's coming at me, I need to make sure that these priorities are handled. And oftentimes then I'll actually go in to my calendar and block off time to work on those particular tasks.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I like about the planner that I'm using is that for the daily planning, you have a box with only 5 bullet points, and those are your 5 priorities for the day. Like I just mentioned, 10 or 12 projects that I need to get accomplished this week, but on the daily planning, you only put down 5. And that's one thing that we've talked about is just narrowing down your focus to a few projects, because there are only so many hours in the day. So why overwhelm yourself? Kind of minimize the distractions with, putting your top priorities there, knocking those out. And then if you're able to work on something else during that day, great. But if you've got 5 priorities and you're an attorney, you're probably not going to be able to accomplish all 5. You're probably going to have to, knock out 2 or 3 and then push the next one to the next day. So I like that you can kind of forces you to prioritize throughout the day. And then also on my planner, it has, 10 or 12 task slots that you're able to fill in. And so those may or may not be related to your big projects that you got to do. It may be, I got to return this phone call. Somebody called and left a message. I got to call them back before the end of the day. And, you don't necessarily want to put that in Clio. Like I said, you just want to write it down and remember that you need to call that person back.
And like I said, for me, one of the things I've really been testing out, and I actually just put a Indiana Lawyer article out on a AI-based transcription tool, and it works on your mobile device, it works on your computer, and it is what good AI should do, right? It's very good at taking your voice and turning it into text. And it will also do some cool stuff, like it'll guess if you're trying to make a list of things, and it'll put a bulleted list together for you. It'll put a numbered list together, or you can self-correct yourself while you're talking and, oh, I meant to say this, not that, and it'll fix it for you at the end of the transcription time. And so when you have that capability, that removes for me the barrier to getting everything into a digital form, right? So I can now in a very short manner, read my daily list back into the computer so it's tracked where I need it to be tracked, or my notes for a particular thing in a pretty efficient manner. And I don't feel like I'm spending my entire day at the keyboard, which, as you know, some days that's what you feel like you do all day long is you're just putting in information into the computer. And it's necessary, right? We've got to do that a lot of times because we do a lot of transactional based work and our deliverable is a document. And so we've got to work through that. So the day to day stuff where I can do it in a slightly different context, utilizing different parts of the brain and getting away from the screen, I really enjoy.
Yeah, there is this movement to do more journaling, kind of getting away from all this digital landscape that we see, our phones, our monitors, our laptops, all that kind of stuff, and our TVs, and even just podcasts and radio. And we're just inundated with so much noise in our heads where, it's kind of nice just to write things down. It gives you, I don't know, it's kind of peaceful in a lot of ways. You're just writing down what you have to do for the day, but in a way that it's actually kind of enjoyable. I'm no scientist, but I feel like it's generating some endorphins when you're crossing out what you wrote down earlier in the day. Kind of from like a balanced mindset standpoint, using something written is really nice.
Yeah, and my wife will probably make fun of me because she's always touted the benefits of a paper-based calendar, for example, and different things like that. But that's the value of that, I think, is what you just said. Interacting with what you're doing, engaging your brain in a different way, remembering what it's like to write in cursive, which people aren't even learning anymore, right? Like that's a whole thing. Do you use a pen or a pencil? Do you have a favorite pen? You can go down the rabbit hole for sure as I'm staring at, several fountain pens on my desk here. And so you've got all these different inputs and things, but ultimately I think the self-evaluation there is this helping me get what I need to get done? That's always the litmus test. It's whatever tool it is, you need to evaluate it and make sure it's actually helping you move the needle or move the ball forward, whatever analogy you want to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at least for this week, I'm sold on it. I'm going to keep on using it. It's been helpful to me this week. So yeah, I encourage people to give it a shot, but you're correct. Whatever works for you is what you need to use, so whether it's writing things down or putting everything, onto a law practice management task list, whatever works for you and helps you to be efficient and serve clients well is what you need to do.
Yeah. And I think it's just kind of a methodology to calm the digital chaos, right? Like I got to make sense of all this stuff that's coming at me. And this is a good way to do that. If before you even turn on the computer for the day and get distracted by what came in overnight or what news event happened. We're recording this on 9/11, which is obviously a memorable day in United States history. And you could get caught up in reflecting on all of that or going down the news article situation. So this gives you a way to handle everything that's on your mind without filling it up with new stuff and kind of getting a perspective on, wait a minute, I can't spend extra time over here today because I've already got my plan, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Seth, tell everybody how they can reach us, how they can view Lifetime Legacy Lawyer Podcast.
Yeah, probably the best way is to go to YouTube and search for Lifetime Legacy Lawyers. We have that video channel or that YouTube channel set up that way. You can like or subscribe to get notified of every time we post something new. You can also find us on all the major platforms for podcasts as well, as we create an audio version of the podcast as well.
Fantastic. I enjoyed the discussion, Seth. We're the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer Podcast, helping lawyers launch. Seth, have a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, Thomas. We'll talk to you soon.